Du lyssnar på Textivals podcast. Textival är en litterär aktör som sedan 2007 arrangerar litterära och konstnärliga program i främst Västra Götaland. Och i den här podcasten kommer ni att möta författare, poeter och ta del av litterära samtal. Jag som pratar heter Anna Karlsson. Välkomna!
Warm welcome to this conversation. We are now in Herrljunga Culture House and Library, and we are close to an exhibition called Härifrån, or From Here in English, and I will talk a bit about that later on. My name is Stina Nilss, and I am the chairperson of RFSL Sjuhärads, and I also work with Textival, who is recording this talk and co-arranging. And with me, I have Khaled Alesmael on screen, set today in Palermo, in Italy. And you are a writer and journalist with your roots in Syria. In 2018, you made your debut novel, Selamlik, and in 2020, you published A Door to the Sea, Letters from Arabic Gay Men. I don't know if that's the English translation. I tried to make it. It's in Swedish, En port till havet, brev från arabiska bögar. And that book is a result of 9 life stories documented through letters and interviews. You have worked as a journalist in the Middle East, Africa, and several major European cities, and you have also won several awards for your writing. Among other things, the Swedish Radio Short Story Award 2020. So that's the short story about you. And Julie Isedor is with me on the small stage. And you are a board member of RFSL Sjuhärads, quite newly, I think in March you came into the board. And you also helped me organize Ulricehamn Pride last year. You have your roots in Nigeria, and today you live in Jönköping, working as a personal assistant, and also fighting for your asylum in Sweden. You came here in 2018. Yeah. You are also one of the 7 person being portrayed in the exhibition From Here, about a cloven ticket to freedom, which is, as I said, we show it here in Herrljunga Kulturhus. So I also want to present the exhibition, even if you who listen can't see it, but the small audience here have the possibility to see it. It's 21 portraits of 7 people, and it's more than 350 quotes from interviews, talks, and life stories. And all of the people in the exhibition have been or has experience from what's the name of fly? Running away from their former home countries based on sexuality and gender identity. In the exhibition, we meet violence, love, hope, and sorrow, trauma, demands, friendship, security, and longing. From Here lifts personal stories and provides knowledge about the undoubted importance of a working asylum law. And it also shows in many ways how the Swedish migration law doesn't work. So the person in the exhibition is Nancy, Asma, Mehmet, Massi, Esther, Julie, and Sophie. And those persons beginning from Libya, Syria, Turkey, Uganda, and Nigeria. And this is all countries where it's more or less impossible to live openly as an LGBTQI person. So that's the introduction. I want to start with, I will also say to the audience that we have a possibility to ask questions afterwards. So, maybe we can start with, how does it feel to be here, Julie?
It feels good to be around, and I think this is a Herrljunga's Pride, and I think it's good to be here.
Yeah, that's
Making it my 3rd Pride in Sweden.
Yeah, welcome. And Khaled, how do you feel?
Today, how I feel about the situation in general, yes, I would say, if we have to find from my experience as a refugee, a war refugee, I learned to find a dream every day, and I have to find something to do and to look for, otherwise I will fall in something, in black hole, something I don't want to be in. So I always feel like I have to work more. I have to do extra effort and job to get what I want and to do what I love. So I feel, I would say, good. At the same time, also, I feel like kind of also to do extra or like extra effort to do what you get. It's tiring, but that's life, I think, of a person like me, or my experience has to be. So try to accept it every day, deal with it, and also to love it.
Thank you.
Stina, this is my strategy and my policy. Since I came to Sweden, I always try to accept challenge and turn them into opportunities.
Thank you. Do you also find or you said that you are trying to love the situation, like love the fight? Is that something you also? Yeah. How do you do that?
I would say queer people or gay people are born to fight in this globe. We are fighting always. Like even now, I have been watching a Netflix production the other day. It's called Heartstopper. It's a coming of age story in the UK of white people, and I could see even those young men. They are white. They grow up in a family, like they should accept them. They have they live now in our time where like gay rights are mostly accepted here, and it's okay. But they still have a lot of challenge. They being bullied in the schools, so a lot of young gay men still have to hide their identity, and they don't like to talk about it, So as I said, like as a gay person, you are born to fight wherever we are born. It sounds like that. So we are trained to fight for our right, for our exit, to also I think in general, I don't want to generalize, but many gay people I met, they are well trained to be tolerant and to be patient and to be to understand. They have like unique understanding of the human nature and the peoples and how to deal with families and friends and societies, So if I talk about as I talk about them as example, these two young men in Heartstopper, so they are white, they are European, they are English, etc. So what about people like me, for example, my color or refugees? So still living in a conflict between disapproving communities, my community as refugees, and also kind of like we faced also some racist, attitude or something from the other side. So we live in between. That's the dilemma or the main problem of gay migrants and refugees in Europe, because as I said before, just to summarize it, we live in between disapproving communities and races. So we have to deal with two things. So it's tiring, but it's a challenge. It's inspiring. It can be a good story to inspire the young people and the world also.
Yeah. Oh, it's many things I want to ask follow-up question with, but I want to ask Julie also if you see the same thing, like the double stigma or I don't know, discrimination in Sweden, like being from Nigeria, being black and lesbian.
Well, I wouldn't say like in as much as there is the discrimination, and most times you find it difficult to really associate with people because sometimes you feel like you will be discriminated if they get to know really who you are. And some people don't really do it openly because they know in Sweden is against the law. So the discrimination is not much like the open, like we face back home. So there is that discrimination here, but it's not open. So the stigma is this, like being an Africa, you want to associate yourself with your fellow Africans, like the same people, color, and people who understand you. But when they find that this is who you are, they kind of give you a distance. So I think that's a stigma and the discrimination too.
Mm-hmm. So it's hard to find a proper place.
Yeah.
Kind of. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you recognize that as well, Khaled? Now you live in Great Britain, I would say, but you also lived in Sweden for a long time. Like the difficulty of finding a place.
I live in between mainly London and Gothenburg, but because of the COVID, when I moved to London, the pandemic started and I couldn't travel quite often to Gothenburg, but I did some talks. And I remember the first talk I did after the pandemic was through Textivals last year. And I would say it's always there, Now, for example, now I'm in Italy and it's like when like a person like me, Syrian heritage, Turkish mother, Syrian father, Swedish citizen, live in London. Now I'm in Italy. So I feel like when they ask me, where are you from? I had to deal with something like, I was like, I am a Swedish citizen. Like somebody said, but where are you from? I'm like, my father is Syrian. So I have to justify, and I would say also something, this is like as a Swedish citizen and I belong to the country, I found like in some countries, like it's very, like kind of they get curious, maybe this is the right word, when they see a person like my color introduce themselves like a Swedish citizen. So I'm like, yeah, Sweden is like has a lot of migrants. Many people with color live in Sweden. You need to know that. I feel like also sometimes I need to tell them a little bit more about Sweden. They want to know, like, because like, are you Swedish? Oh, like, yeah, I am. So this kind of things, and also on the top of that, like I'm a queer person, so it's like creating a lot of questions about my identity. Sometimes when I am, to be honest, in a good mood, I like to talk about that with them. And sometimes like, I just want to tell them, okay, I'm adopted. And I did it once. I was really tired in a bar and I was like, yes, I'm Swedish, but I'm adopted. I don't know where I am from. So I found myself a Swedish citizen. So I didn't want to tell the story from the scratch again. It's so tiring to repeat the same story for many people. So yeah, it's especially when you are queer. Sometimes when I hear like my brother or other like friends who they identify themselves as heterosexual people with families and children and wives, sometimes I feel like they have less, I would say, less pain when they talk about themselves, or when they integrate, or when they like travel or do something or work or mingle with people. So it's like hard, but we don't need to think about it all the time like this. We need to find solutions, and also to be part of the change ourselves, because this is our, I think, issue. This is our case. This is our story. We are the first people who are responsible to work on it and make it I don't like the word normal, but I would say to tell it and share it and work on it to get better. We are the responsible people. We shouldn't wait for the others to accept it or to deal with it. We have to.
Yeah, a good answer. But I also think that's like within politics as well. Like now we are talking about real refugees, and that means that it's white refugees coming from Ukraine, for example. And we also see a lot of stories in the exhibition from here where people are not believed by the Swedish migration agency and migration courts. And of course, they don't write it out in the protocols, but it's between the lines saying that you cannot be black or Arabic and gay, or you cannot be transgender from Syria, for example. This is like the common picture that you should be like either you are a refugee and Arabic or black, for example, or African, or you're a LGBTQI person. This is something which is repeatedly coming back in the protocols from migration agency. So this picture is not only, it's everywhere in the society, I think. But I want to get back a bit to your writing, both of you. Khaled, you write as a profession with just books, reportage, journalism. And Julie, you wrote your own life story. Not to be published, but for your own sake and also for in the asylum process. Can you tell us something about how it felt writing your story when you did it? It's more like a diary, maybe diary writing.
I will say it's very hard and difficult because first the writings was like I felt I wasn't given an opportunity to tell my story, and waiting for the court answer if I'm going to have a hearing or a written appeal for my lawyer to write a written appeal. So then at the process of talking with you, then the idea was like to write, because growing up is something that you never talked about. Your feelings, who you are. It's nobody to like share these feelings or ideas or knowledge with except your partner. And when you grow up, like it's like, I don't know, it's like a taboo, like to meet someone to like tell the person what you are passing through, because you don't know who is who and who is going to like put you up there. So, and when I went to the migration, so I was trying to like tell my story, but it's like the migration have I don't know if I should use this word like single story to every person. So, and forgotten that we are individuals, and being individuals, it makes us unique. We have our way of understanding, processing, accepting things, and seeing things. But I think because the migration have this, it's like they have, I don't know if I should say criteria or a written out, a play out of how a person that is from this place is supposed to be. Like they construct your life for you, and if you didn't meet that criteria, then it's negative. So, and finding the right words to explain or describe my fears, my feelings, the pains, the loss, and the love was very hard. I would say it was very hard, but at the end I was really uplifted because I was heard, and the migration court sent my case back to the migration. So I will really say it's a big help for me.
Yeah, I think you are very, very right in this, that it's one like stereotypical picture of how you should be and behave as an LGBTQI person, how you should feel when you should understand that you are LGBTQI, etc., etc. So it's a lot of I think since we worked with your text together and your life story, and you told your story to me, it's a balance between like trying to fit in, which is ridiculous, because of course you should tell your story. So we worked a lot of like the true story, but still with the words that Swedish
really,
migration agency should understand.
Describe them.
Yeah, which is tricky. But yeah, your case is quite special because basically migration court said that migration agency did wrong and send your case back to migration agency.
Because when I went for I think I've been to the interview 3 times, but when I went to the first one, I don't know, you read my protocol because I was like trying to explain like everything. But it was like she kept she picked something like which she think that this is like what I'm going to use to give her negative, and she just held on that, and she was like, you are not supposed to this, and you're not supposed to. I don't get it, but it's like this. This single story is like, yes, you are from Nigeria, so you can't be this. You have to be this. So like everybody that come from this place, this is the way they're supposed to be. So, and that is very wrong. We are individuals and we are very unique in our own way. Like that's my belief. And that from the fact that I am from Nigeria and I have this life does not mean that any other person that is from Nigeria have to have the same life that I have.
Of course not.
That's why we are different.
Yeah. And that's also one reason why I believe that stories and telling the stories and getting the stories to be read is so important, because we need more stories of individuals and
I think when you go to the migration, is very, very important to try to tell your story as much as you can. But the problem is, I am not quite used to explaining feelings, because it's not something that I grew up doing. So, and when I went to the migration, it was difficult for me to like sit with strangers and being asked questions, because it's like, when you sit there, it's like, and they ask you the question, they don't care about telling your stories. They care about if you meet the criteria. That is what, and they ask you the question based on this criteria that they have. Not really you telling your stories, and they use the stories you tell to judge you or see if you really meet this criteria. It's like they ask you what they think or what they feel like this is what you're supposed to experience, or this is who you're supposed to be. And when you don't answer that question direct, then it's a negative.
Yeah.
So like telling our story is important, but I think it's also important for the migration to make the atmosphere very friendly when we go to interviews, because I think is a big thing also.
Yeah. Yeah, so that part of like writing or telling story is one part, I think, but I think also the whole society needs to be better in seeing, and we need more knowledge about these individual stories, because I think we need to be a lot of more people pushing the migration agency and the migration court into understanding. And for now, it's not very many people in Sweden. I see that when I'm out talking and having lectures, that knows how the situation is in Nigeria or in Syria, for example, or in Sweden. Like, how is it to be an LGBTQI asylum seeker in Sweden? We need to get these stories out. And that's also why we make this exhibition with RFSL newcomers every year, with stories. We need to hear more of them.
Yeah, because when you go to the migration and you tell them like you are a lesbian, and they will tell you, how can you be a lesbian in Nigeria? Is not legal. It's like it's not legal doesn't mean that that people are undoing it. That that's the fact that you can't rob does not mean that there are no people that are robbing. You understand? So I really don't know how they think or how they make these criteria. No. Because it's just like they made it like this is how it's supposed to be. And it's when when people have this picture or an understanding, so it's really difficult for you to like explain things beyond this picture that they have, because they don't want to take away that picture because they believe that this is their picture. So it's difficult for them to like just take, I don't know.
Understand the different stories. But Khaled, you work with this like stories that is written to be read. And in your latest book, you we follow 9 persons, is it? Or 7? 9. And it's based on letters from them. Can you tell us a bit more about like your work with writing, your work with telling stories?
Yeah, I'm listening to Julie and I'm just like reflecting a lot of and thinking of a lot of thoughts and what she is talking about. Like really reminding me of many people I met, and basically reminding me of myself when I was living in an asylum house as an asylum seeker in Småland, and how I process and meeting the migration officers, and we have to deal with many things. As I say, like we know that we live in a complicated situation. We've been in the asylum house, but it's also one of the extra work. Again, I was talking about is to how to convince the migration office about your situation and to approve your queer identity. You know, as what happened with the Iraqi bear, the story I wrote for Uttar, how a gay man from Iraq, they rejected his case because they didn't believe that he was gay in the first application, and he appealed again, and his boyfriend joined him in the interview, and they used the article I wrote and my testimony about him until they approved positively his application. And it's like kind of sad. At the same time, I found it interesting because it reminds me also, for example, yesterday, a Qatari doctor from Qatar, he came out as a gay in the UK, and BBC interviewed him, and he became like a story for the media, international story. And I've been commenting about this for BBC Radio yesterday, and they asked me like, why do you think he came out to tell the people in Qatar that, or the Middle East, that there are gays living there? And I said to them, believe me, people there, regardless if they approve or deny or disapprove the homosexuality, they know it does exist. But this man, he did that for his case, for the migration. It seems like the opposite. He wants to approve to the UK immigration office that there are gay people who are most identified as Muslims and Arabs, because people they know that. And as I said, regardless how they react, but it seems he is approving for the migration offices. I think everywhere around the world, they need to do more, I think, more work and research about that, and they need to listen to the stories. They do workshop, I think the asylum process, waiting process at asylum houses, at Osil Buwende, I think this is, I don't know why, maybe I'm ignorant, I don't know how much, but through my experience and the experience of people I met and I know personally and work closely with them, they don't do any activities around. For example, it's important to do some research workshops, the migration They have to use this moment and talk to the people and let them write, and I think that will help them also to make decisions and also help them to collect data and information about refugees and migrants. That will help them for work. I don't know why they isolate them away from everyone in Sweden and in Italy or in the UK, and they don't want to know anything about them, and they depend on their testimonies with the lawyers or with in the immigration. And this is why don't they do other things? They do a theater, a drama, writing, artistic things, painting, maybe social events to learn about them, and that, as I said, help them. I don't know why they don't do that. And I myself, I will say something about my books. I rarely go. Like you are doing great job, not because you are here, Stina, and also I know a few people in Sweden. But I expected more interest from the migrations side in these kind of books, because it tells story of 9 people came from Middle East and North Africa. Salam League is in the depth of the migration policy, and it takes everyone into the asylum houses and tell them how it's going and how the life is there, daily life, all the moments, hard or good or funny. So I don't know what they want to do. They want just to do questionnaire, and as Julie said, like criteria, standard, if you fill this standard, so you are accepted or not. So I think definitely they need to do much more work and communicate with the asylum seekers and change the methods and the way they work a little bit. I would not say change, maybe it's a big word. Maybe they add new things or develop the part of the work to get into, because migration somehow is it's enriching the countries. Maybe Sweden or Denmark or Germany or Italy will miss opportunities and potentials of those people, so why? So let's learn more about them before we give them the decision before instead of isolating them.
Yeah, that's a good point. And as I said before, I think that the novels and the stories around are as important as the storytelling within migration system or asylum process, to raise knowledge and to find ways to understand more individual stories, because that's a big lack right now. And also Sweden and other European countries is breaking the law, basically, like how the migration system works right now. They are not following their own guidelines or the Swedish law or the UN Declaration of Human Rights. So it's different parts, but more stories and better ways of working with it, but also be wise in actually doing the things that they should, because they are not right now. It's several reports shows that migration agency is breaking the law.
Like Denmark want to take the refugees to wait for the decisions outside the country. They want to send them to few countries in Africa. UK wants to send asylum seekers to Rwanda. Like, they are there. Why don't you talk to them? Create dialogue instead of even not isolating them. It's a new step now in Europe. They are taking them out of Europe, waiting for the decisions.
Yeah, that's a good example of like taking decision without listening to the stories and without taking consideration to the people at all. And that's definitely breaking the law. It's not allowed to do within asylum right. Big troubles. I think we have about 5 minutes more to talk, and I want to ask the small audience if you have any thoughts or comments. And also, of course, if Julie and Khaled, if you have questions to each other, please let me know.
Actually, I was going to ask him if he has any plans, since he has experienced the single stories on his work, because you're a journalist and you've written a book based on interviews of gay people from Syrian. So I'm just going to ask you if like you have a plan or something like because I think there is need for this a voice to be heard about these single stories, because it's really wrong, like when you go to the migration and they base your story on what you should be. Like if you have any plans or like writings, like you can, because I think that there's a need for we to speak up about to understand that everybody doesn't have to be the same. I think is a very big problem. So I'm going to ask you if you have plans for that.
Plans, right? Like for about gay asylum seekers from different countries.
Yeah, but right now you said you are in Palermo. Okay, you are working with asylum seekers in Italy. Okay, and I believe like most of them must have told their stories to you, or maybe people who has a negative or like explain themselves to you, like according from their stories and from what I've said just now. Like, do you have any plans right now, like the way that the migration, because I think this is not only happening in Sweden, I think it's also happening in some other countries as well. So like if you have any plan right now and in Italy about it.
Yeah, what I do in Italy now, I'm like trying to meet the politicians. I do some personal research for my next project about migration, LGBTQI migration, and especially in Palermo, not whole Italy, and this island, I would say Sicily, not Palermo, sorry. And I'm trying to meet asylum seekers, I would say migrants who are not registered. I don't want to call them illegal, because not easily, they are human beings. You know, they are human. They are trying to find new life. So I'm trying to talk to them, and I mean, I don't want to know how to what is the output of this, but what I know right now that I have really more about their lives and how the migration policy work with LGBTQ people who arrive from Middle East, Africa, and also from different countries, because I met also other a guy from India, but he had not like political threat. He had a threat from his family. So I'm trying to understand the situation here, and I see later how it can be. What's the output of this? It can be article, research, or like in my mentioned, or I talk about in my third book, because I think it's important. And for example, in a country like Italy, when I spoke about Salam Lake and Gateway to the Sea in Port Harvard, I could see they've been talking, actually, some politicians and publishers, that they don't have this kind of books here in Italy. They didn't read like a story, I would say, a contemporary story happened in the about LGBTQI and migration in Europe. It's the lack is obvious, and it's clear that they lack this kind of stories, because they told me that they think, you know, Sweden has a good reputation about human rights, so they thought like being gay in Sweden, this is their voice, what they say to me, and the people I met here, especially the politicians, they thought that any gay person from around the world, especially from the Middle East, Muslim or Arab countries or Africa, they apply for asylum in Sweden, they get accepted immediately with a great good standards of life. They give them, they hear that they give salaries and houses, and things like that. So they have this kind of image too. I said to them, it's hard. Like I said almost the truth, like it's hard to be gay anywhere and apply for asylum anywhere, but maybe because the standards of asylum seekers in Italy is really bad, and comparison to Sweden, still much better. The standards of accommodation, I would say, is much better, definitely, because here it's like unaccepted as of the standard of European Union. It shouldn't be like this at all, especially for gay people and women.
Yeah, I think we can see that all over or in different places. And for me, myself, I get so sad when thinking about all these like silent lives living like a parallel life, because that's what the Swedish politics now, I don't know, it gets worse and worse with these parallel lives, not to see people, see individuals, see cases. And therefore, again, we need the stories. And as you said in the beginning, Khaled, we need to work more to fight for human rights, of course, and to get stories to be told. And I'm very, very proud of being friends with you both and be able to read your stories, even if it's book articles or like diary for you, Julie. So I think we need to continue. And I think we should end this talk now.
My last question to Julie, just like last question, which language are you writing in?
English.
Okay, great.
Yeah, because you are writing in Arabic at first. And you have your Anna, who is your translator. I think you, as I understand it, you work quite closely. You write in Arabic, but she writes like parallel with you. Because that's also an important thing, like in what...
She translates parallel.
Yeah. That's also one important thing, also within asylum process and with migration, but also in your writing, like how you, in what language are you able to express yourself and your story in the best of ways? Because we can see that within migration as well, that sometimes you don't get an interpreter in your own native language. That's also breaking the law, but sometimes that happens and you have to explain yourself in a language which is not yours. Or maybe in a language where words for LGBTQI doesn't exist. So that's the language is of course also an important thing. So the audience, any questions? No? I want to end with one thing that I think you told me this 2018, Khaled, when we met during a Pride festival. And you talked about the importance of having Pride festivals and doing LGBTQI activities and writing stories around the world. I think you talked about when you were in Syria and you looked at, for example, Sweden with Pride festivals, and you felt that the fight for your right was happening, but not where you were geographically. And maybe that is something I want to end this talk with, like the importance of doing things, even if we don't feel it where we are. For example, here in Herrljunga, a very small municipality, we need to keep the fight going also for people who are not specifically here.
Yeah, and that's why I love social media, because social media is connecting us together somehow. You know, it has many things, but social media, writing about that, like there is, as you said, in a small town in Sweden, in the west of Sweden, speaking about LGBTQI and the life of the gay people around the world matter for them, and that's very empowering, believe me, because I experienced that when I was looking at Sweden from Syria before the war. I was like, I feel like some people are talking about me and I don't know them. I thought I would never meet them or I would not be a part of this, but it helps a lot. It really helps, and it makes them feel like it's in Sweden now. One day it will be where they are right now, maybe soon, but it will happen. So it's kind of also the fight is not over. Everything matters. Everything helps to empower things. I wrote in my book also. Gay people everywhere are responsible of the freedom of gay people anywhere. This is what I think. This is what we have to do. I'm not rich. I'm not a powerful politician person, but I write on Facebook. I talk to people. This is what I can do, and this is helpful.
Yes, I am sure it is. And yeah, I think that's really good words to end this talk with, like that we all can do things where we are and with the power that we actually have, and also the importance of connecting between different life stories and different people. So Khaled, thank you so much that you took your time from Italy to be here, and I'm really looking forward to read your, if it's a novel or if it's a journalistic work from Italy. And also thank you so much, Julie, to be here.
Thank you.
I should tell you it's a novel. Thank you.
Great. I'm looking forward to that. And thank you to the small audience in the room. Yeah. That's it.